Kathy, welcome to Live Your Life with Purpose podcast. You are certainly someone who is doing just that. I appreciate you taking time to come on. I know that we've talked, and you have really done some amazing things out of a tragic situation. And so I really wanted you to be able to tell that story and kind of share some of the things that you've been able to do because of that. And so welcome.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you having me on as your guest. And as we know, people's stories can inspire others to speak
Yeah.
up and
Yeah.
share their story. So I applaud you for having guests like myself tell their story to your
Yeah.
audiences.
Yeah. And I haven't had the opportunity. We were just talking about your book. I haven't had the opportunity to get into the book. I was hoping to have been able to read it. But we just picked it up. I think it was last week.
Yeah.
And from you. So thank you for the book. And I do look forward to reading it. But maybe we can start with that, just sharing a little bit about the book and kind of the reason why we're talking today.
Sure, sure. So the book, I just wanted to show a picture for your audience. Life
Excellent.
with My Idiot Family. It's a true story of survival, courage, and justice over childhood sexual abuse. People laugh sometimes at the title, but the title came about when my husband and I are the ones that wrote the book. Took us
Hmm.
5 years to write it, but I'm glad that we did. And the title came about when we realized that, my mother called us four girls growing up idiots or ASS holes.
Mm.
So that's how we came up with the title. But it was, people ask, was it a tough write? And it was, because you're reliving what you went through as a child.
Yeah, and anyone who has trauma, I've talked to a few different people, and even for myself, having lost parents, you know, we don't ever lose emotions. We don't ever
Mhm.
forget things. They don't ever kind of go away. We
Mhm.
just understand how to deal with things. We understand how to, handle the emotions and what to do from that. And a lot of people get, and I'm sure like yourself, a lot of therapy from helping others, and so is that true for you, that that this is also a form of therapy for you to be able to help other people?
It is, Scott. It's a form of healing, because I know by sharing my story, and I've been told firsthand that by sharing my story, it can make others feel like they're not alone, like it's not their fault. Having to go through being sexually abused by my stepfather when I was 7 to 17, that's 10 years, happening.
Yeah, like, I mean, one, such a long time, but then two, it's such an impressionable age as well. I mean, you are at that age when we're coming into understanding who you are and all about yourself, and all of that was distorted.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that it was a form of love. As a young child, you don't know that what somebody is doing to you, inappropriate touches, that they're wrong. You don't realize that most of the times until you're an adult, till you're older, and you're able to tell, till you're in a safe home, a safe position to get out of that home and to tell your story. And a
Mm,
lot of people, even to this day, Scott, will say, why didn't you tell?
mm,
Survivors know why you don't tell. And that's one of the worst questions, by the way, that somebody can ask a survivor. You should have
mm,
told. You
mm.
knew it was wrong. You should have told. So the self blaming, survivors that self blame themselves, it does happen. I self blamed. I'm like, why didn't I tell? I didn't have my voice back then like I
Yeah.
do today.
Well, and that's such a great topic, and thank you for sharing that, because I think that that's also something that people just don't understand. So certainly coming from your side is, you know, people may be inquisitive, but that's not a question that anybody should be asked, or that they should have to answer, because
Right,
it's really none of your business, right?
right,
I
right.
mean, we all have, there's reasons behind all of it, and I'm sure it's like, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't
Right.
want I don't want, and I know you shared a little bit, there was some threatening things that happened that is like, okay, well, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my stepfather told me, do not tell, keep it a secret, which you often hear. And that's what I was told many, many times. It's our secret. And I thought he loved me, in a sense that I should have been loved by my mother. But, so I kept it a secret because he kept saying to me, keep it a secret, don't tell, nobody's going to believe you. Your parents are going to get divorced. And you know what, Kathy? It's going to be your fault. So I didn't tell. But I want to just make a point, though, Scott, on the
yeah.
opposite end, when a person does want to disclose to you, please take the time then. Don't
Mm,
wait another minute. I don't care if you have to go to the bathroom, hold it. But take the time then, because that person is reaching out to you. Take the time, listen to them, because if you don't, they're going to go back and they're going to say, I forgot what I had to say, or it's not that
mhm.
important. But your tone of voice, your eye contact are huge. They are very important for a survivor disclosing to you.
Well, just like anything else, I mean, if you have the courage at that point to start to say something and want to share some information,
Mhm.
if somebody seems indifferent or not interested or like they don't have time for your story, I'm sure you've been hiding and keeping all of this stuff. And so
Exactly.
that's an immediate retreat to where it could take another couple of years before somebody is
Yeah.
then finally ready in order to then, maybe say some of that information. And I think that it's important for people then also to realize I'm always a big advocate of, we hear everything that we say to ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
but it's also crazy when, as a parent, we don't necessarily think anything of it, but having your mom say, oh, you guys, and it might have been in a sarcastic way, like, oh, this is just my form of love because this is what my parents showed me. But
Yeah.
how did that make you feel? Did you like hearing, even in a joking way, okay, loser, like, okay,
Yeah.
asshole, like nobody wants to hear that and then think, oh, that's just funny. Like it's not, and
It's not funny.
it's harmful, and it's extremely harmful
Yeah.
to the way that you view yourself, right? And I'm sure it took a long time to get past thinking of yourself in a different capacity.
Yeah, yeah, and it's easier, Scott, to walk away, right? It's
Mm,
easier not to talk about it than to open that up. Open up that conversation, but have that conversation more than once.
mm,
And it could not be your child. It could be your child's friend, that you're able to help. It could be the neighbor, it could be anybody, but have that conversation that I'm here when you want to talk to me.
mm,
Don't keep it a secret. If someone's telling you to keep it a secret, and it feels kind of funny or odd, I'm here and you can tell me
mhm.
and we can talk about it.
Yeah. And just having a safe space, and the more that you share your story, it allows for other people
Mhm.
to feel safe with their story
Right.
and comfort that, okay, well, I'm not alone, that there are other people
Yeah.
and this wasn't right. And yeah.
Yeah. And Scott, as you know, as I've mentioned to numerous people, I've been on TV, been in the news, but writing the book was so important to me. But
Mm,
being an advocate for sexual abuse for 20 years,
yeah.
I'll be 59 years old this August, and I don't see an ending to this because sexual abuse is not going to go away, right?
Mm,
But
yeah.
if we can lessen the numbers by talking about it, by educating people, that's what's important, bringing that awareness out there, but having my door open for anybody. And I
Yeah.
do. I open it for anybody that wants to talk about it and to hear prevention tips.
Well, that's it. And it's like, let's not pretend that it doesn't happen. So the
Mhm.
more that we have conversations, then kids know that, okay, there are inappropriate things.
Yeah.
And if there's ever something that is inappropriate that happens to you, to just continuously remind people that there's safe places to go, that there's safe places to be able to share that information. Um, and a lot of it is that you won't get judged, right? I'm sure as somebody who, had this happen to them, one of your thoughts was, how is like being judged, like how
Mhm.
is it, how am I going to look, are people not going to believe me, right? Like, am I going to cause, like, so there's a lot of just other emotions that you have to deal with aside from the abuse.
You do. You feel dirty. You feel dirty inside. You feel like that shouldn't have happened, but it's my fault because I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell, when in fact I did tell, and I talk about it in the book, but I did tell when I was 9 years old. And I
Mm,
told my mother's mother, my Grammy, and she said, "Shh, Kathy, we don't talk about that." So she just reinforced what my stepfather said, don't talk about it. So I let it go, let it go. I did not speak up from 9 until I was 28 years old.
that's
At
amazing.
28 years old, I would go and tell my mother's sister, my Aunt Judy, and she was petrified of my stepfather, who was an auxiliary police officer. So I was threatened by the gun in the home on top of the verbal threats. And I told her, and she said, "Kathy, let's not talk about it, but you can come and talk to me." So I did,
Mm, yeah.
and
And I wonder if, even like for your grandmother's side, I wonder if that was something that may have happened to her and that was what she was told. And so maybe, you know, it's a cycle that perpetuates itself versus, something else, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm just
yeah,
saying,
it's
it's
a
just,
possibility.
it's a
Yeah.
shame that that's where, it had to continue versus it could have been stopped.
Yeah. But also I think, Scott, the older generation, not to put them down because there are a lot of smart people out there, but the older generation, they were not educated, because people really didn't talk about it
Didn't talk
back
about this.
then.
It wasn't. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they still don't talk about it enough for me now. I mean, it really needs
Well,
to be in the schools.
I think that is still something that, people don't want to talk about because it's this weird kind of topic, and it's like, oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
And then, but it's like, well, let's not talk about it because it makes everyone uncomfortable. But you should be uncomfortable listening to this because just think about somebody that this has happened to and how uncomfortable they are. So this is, again, it's a topic that continues to need to be talked about so that it's not
Yeah.
uncomfortable for people, you know, who have gone through this, or
And
maybe can be prevented, of something drastic happening by, hey, that wasn't right, I don't like that.
right,
And
right. But the sooner they talk about it, the sooner it can be stopped. And
mm,
and then the survivor will not go down those other paths that people take, drugs, alcohol, sadly, suicide,
yeah,
and with this COVID, with this pandemic, I mean, these people are stuck in the homes with the abusers. I mean, the numbers are going to go skyrocketing.
yeah,
The
yeah,
mental
I don't.
health is bad.
Yeah, the mental health across the country is COVID has taken a toll on on lots of folks, and you see it.
Yeah.
And because it was a weird time, but yeah, COVID is only going to perpetuate a bad situation, and this is one of those bad situations.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do have to mention that the COVID did bring some good things, positive things to me.
Mm,
I wanted to go away, obviously, but it did bring to me that my husband is writing the screenplay of our book and is about 3/4 of the way done.
that's
I've
fantastic.
also been working with an illustrator on a children's book, and
Mm.
we're hoping to have that released next month. So
Oh, fantastic.
that's kind of exciting, and that will be to help the young ones, not so detailed as my book, but
Sure.
for 4 to 9 year olds. And I got to say, the illustrations are unbelievable. And with COVID, I've actually did a Zoom for the students in Serbia,
Mm.
which they got more technical because of COVID. So
How fun
some
is
good
that,
things.
right? Like, I mean, it's nice to be able to, like, you know, like talk to people across the country and, just be able to take a look at all of these things where, writing a children's book,
Mhm.
that's just an amazing, I think, kind of piece, because why not reinforce all of these potential bad situations that I'm sure in a positive light, right? Like, okay, here's a potential situation and here's what we do about it.
Yeah.
And it allows that group of kids to then say, okay, well, now we know and we have some guidance with regards to what we're going to do. I think that that's
Yeah.
amazing, Kathy.
I just, Scott, I just want these kids to be safe and to be loved like I was not.
Hmm.
I just can't even imagine, but there's so many kids that need that adult person to be there, as their parent, as their friend, as one that's going to love them.
Hmm.
And it's sad. Like I said, 7 to 17, 10 years, but even if it happens once, that is just very traumatic to a survivor.
Oh
One
yeah,
time.
one time is is
Yeah.
horrible, but never mind. 10 years is
Mhm.
of, and then just having that person. And I know that you said that your mother is still with your stepfather.
They're living
They're
separately.
living separately. Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
well, so that's good. I mean, and but it's still such a just a tough situation.
Yeah.
At least he's not around, and you don't have to deal with that, which
Yeah.
is great.
But and that's one thing, like survivors, they feel like they have to stay to keep that family together. And that was one of the hard things for me. It's like, because I wanted that family, I wanted that interaction, I wanted those Christmas parties to go to. But to isolate myself and to have the people I have in my life that I chose now is very important. You
Yeah.
need to be safe and you need to be happy, but mostly you need to be healthy. And
Hmm.
you just need to get any bad people out of your life.
Well, and that's it. Like, I think that's important for lots of people, not necessarily just within this realm,
Yeah.
but we always hear about, toxic people, and it's okay to cut them out of your life.
Hmm.
And, it doesn't say that, hey, in the future, if that person has changed, then that door might be reopened.
Right.
But if there is somebody causing you distress and there is somebody who is not, adding to your mental health in a positive way,
Right.
but only in a negative way, then you shouldn't, you should distance yourself from that person. You shouldn't put yourself into a situation that continues to give you anxiety, which is only going to perpetuate possibly a bad behavior or a behavior
Right.
that you don't like for yourself, but
Right.
is going to be sometimes destructive, because that that's what makes you feel good because you've had this destructive behavior. So yeah, I mean, there's such a rabbit hole that it can go down.
Right. And the old saying, Scott, misery loves company, is so true. Get rid of them, and that was the
Mhm.
best thing I ever did. And,
Yeah,
I have friends that are my sisters in my life. And, you know, I love my life.
that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, like I said, doing my passion and, doing the advocacy work that I've done, and it came about when they started talking about the priest abuse back in 2002.
Hmm.
And they talked about, you can call 1-800 dial a lawyer. And I think that's when my abuse triggered. And I said, what he did to me was not right. So I called the number and I said, what can I do about it? And they said, sorry, Kathy, there's nothing you can do. The statute of limitations has run out. Well, that didn't sit well with me. I was looking for an answer, not another closed door, right?
Hmm.
So I reached out to all the senators, all the representatives, going to the Boston State House, sending them emails, hounding them. Actually, I had one aide say, Kathy, you're bothering me. And I'm like, too bad, you need to do your job. So reaching out to all of them, realizing that I wanted to make a change. I
Hmm.
wanted to help change the laws here in Massachusetts for when a survivor can go forward for justice. And that's what
Hmm.
I was looking for. Maybe if I got the apology, Scott, from my stepfather, I might not have continued down my journey road,
Hmm.
but I never got the apology. To this day, I still never got the apology. I'm
Hmm.
sorry. What I did was wrong. In fact, he just said, I didn't do that. So, but anyways, changing the laws, and even people don't realize now, but the laws in Massachusetts have changed for
And
both.
you've been a big part of that. So
Yeah,
congratulations. That's such a tremendous thing to say, okay, not only do I have this passion for helping other people, but you've made such an impact that you've been able to help change a law. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that because that's amazing.
yeah. So for statute of limitations, which is the time frame when you can go forward for justice,
Hmm.
there's criminal and there's civil. And the first was the criminal that had changed. So the criminal had changed on September 21st, 2006. And a survivor at that point in time had to have only been 31 years old, but that increased to the age of 43. I was still too old. I couldn't do anything about it. So then there was the civil. Civil is monetary. Criminal is where they would have to register as a sex offender and they'd have to do jail time.
Hmm.
But I was able to go forward, Scott, with civil. So the civil statute of limitations here in Massachusetts, a person can be 53 years old and have their day in court. It used to be 21. So that was a huge
Wow.
jump. And that changed on June 26, 2014.
Mm.
So right after that law changed, I was at the Boston State House, and for two reasons. One, I'm very visual. I wanted to see former Governor Deval Patrick sign the bill into law. And two, I wanted one of those pens. So in fact, they're very symbolic to me, for
Hmm.
everything I've
Of
been
course.
through and
Of
done.
course.
So I got two pens, and like I don't use them, I keep them, but they're very symbolic. And so the law changed in 2014, 2015. It took a year to get prepared, but I did have my day in federal court, and that
Hmm.
started on November 2nd for a 4-day jury trial against my stepfather.
Yeah. And how did that feel for you to be able to do that and to be able to at least go through that process? I don't know what the outcome was, and it's almost irrelevant, but at least it really, it allowed you to be able to just speak your piece, right? Like, and I think that
Yeah.
that's what's important for people. Um, we all want justice, but at least you get to speak your piece.
It was huge. To say that I was not nervous is not true.
Yeah.
Very, very nervous, seeing him for the first time in many, many years. Going there, I would bring the picture of me as this little flower girl in, because then I started to have my voice, right? And so I was very nervous, my husband by my side. And, I said everything. It was an 8-panel jurors. It wasn't for the judge. It was up to the jurors to decide the
Hmm.
fate. And I'm glad I did it, because I paved the way that not only for my case to get justice, but also there was a male that followed suit right behind me and won his trial as well.
And that's
So
important for people because most people see, and there are like it's on both ends of the spectrum, right? Both male
yeah,
and female. So it's not like it's just female, girls who are getting, sexually assaulted. There's a lot of young boys that are getting sexually assaulted as well, which
absolutely.
is only going to, again, perpetuate all of these bad relations and bad understanding of their own sexuality in the future because of things that have happened, and so if they don't deal with it, then it's always going to be a part of that, right?
Right, right. And the reported statistics, Scott, are 1 in every 4 girls before their 18th birthday have been sexually
Ah,
assaulted. And for males, because as you mentioned, there are males, I know of a lot of them that I've come in contact with, but 1 in every 6 boys before their 18th birthday will have been sexually abused. So
yeah.
it's very common. It's harder for males to speak up, I think, but
Yeah.
it's hard for women as well.
Hmm.
But you need to talk about it, and I get it. It's very hard, but I think that's one of the first steps, and baby steps. Those of you that are watching now, they may not want to speak today, tomorrow, but maybe in a year. But that it's their story.
Hmm.
they can speak their story and should be able to speak their story when they are ready.
Yeah. And I think that it's so important, kind of what you were just talking about with regards to, um, just the number and the statistics, because how many of those are then going to therapy? And I don't even know if you
Mhm.
did, but just to help themselves deal with the situation. Was that something that you ever explored, or did you just kind of handle things on your own?
No, Scott, I did. I went through three counselors that I speak about in the book as well.
Yeah.
Um, it was finally the last counselor that, and I'm not saying all counselors are bad, for any different topic, but the last counselor that I saw, she said, Kathy, you need to forget about it and go on with your life.
Hmm.
And that's what my family told me. That's not good advice. You never forget about it, but you don't let it control you.
Yeah.
You deserve better. And I'll never forget it, but he's not going to win.
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you, you
And
know, I,
and I've talked to a couple of different people, and I was just actually speaking to somebody that has become a therapist herself because of all of the different things that she has gone through, but then also not having, so maybe sometimes the best therapist. I talked to somebody who had severe OCD, and they had a therapist that, called her mom a bitch. And it's
Mhm,
just like, you know again, you go to places and people,
mhm.
with this trust that they're here to help you, and sometimes it takes two or three or four or five therapists to
Yeah,
find the one that you're going to connect with that is right for you. But it's and I think that whether it's with somebody who's trained or with somebody that you trust, and it could be a spouse,
yeah,
but therapy in just talking about something and being able to speak is really, it's therapeutic for people, being able to get things off your chest. And so yeah, I'm a
yeah,
big advocate for therapy, but I also understand there's a lot of pitfalls, and it's not a perfect system where you kind of have to find the balance of
right,
who works best with you, type of a
right.
situation.
And it's hard not only for sexual abuse, but it's hard for any topic to tell your story, being a bad story, sad story, but don't stop at just one, and it's hard to keep on repeating. I got to start all over so they don't bother going back. But,
Hmm.
I get that. I, however, did find a really good therapist, and he's a male.
Yeah.
Because at first I was like, oh, I don't want to tell, a male my situation, but he's very good. And he actually testified during my trial.
Mm.
He gets it. I
Hmm.
talk about him in the book, and
That's great.
you got to find the right connection.
That's it. That's it. It
You
really,
know,
there are definitely people that help with the situation, because I think that if, the more that you don't want to talk about it and you keep things bottled up inside, it's always going to be there.
right,
Whether you deal with it or you don't, it is always going to be there.
right,
So I think that it's just trying to then identify to yourself, how do you want to live, right? Like, how do you want to handle this going forward? And then once you decide that, then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take the necessary steps to heal
right,
myself. And sometimes that is sharing your story over and over again, so that other people, don't have to do that. And
yeah.
so I applaud you for that, because I know that it's hard, and it's hard to talk about these things, but the benefit that it gives to people is
It,
amazing.
it overpowers it. And, I'm sure my husband, who's heard my story over and over and over, I'm sure he's, you know, tired of hearing it, but at least I know he's there for me. And that's important to have, like we talked about, having people in your life that you can talk to, because you
Yeah.
should be able to, or they don't deserve to be in your life.
That's it. And you've got somebody that, is going to support these goals that you have, regardless of the story. This is something that's important to you, that you have a passion for, that you want to help, your community.
Yeah.
And and have somebody there supporting that, helping you write the book, helping you write a screenplay, that's a great tool to have. And so, you're certainly lucky to have that, in
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, I definitely am. I mean, writing the book, we reached out to at least 4 different people, and they're like, I can't write this book because it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And finally, we are sitting on, my husband calls it our magical couch, and he goes, looks like I have to write the book. And,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
So,
That's excellent. It's
yeah.
amazing. So how was that process with writing the book? I mean, how was it for him? How was that for you?
Like I mentioned, it was triggering.
Yeah.
It was hard. My husband is reliving that with the screenplay now, where there's moments where he just gets upset, angry. We have to talk about it. So we're reliving it, but now he's almost up to where the trial is. So we're already past the crap.
Yeah, you're into some of the stuff that,
Yeah. Oh, we just hope that when it does become a screenplay, that it's pretty close to the book. I get it that they need to change it, but the book is my story, and there's enough drama in there to make it a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, certainly I appreciate all of the time and, you sharing this information and, kind of where to go. What advice do you give individuals who might hear this and then want to maybe share a story for that they have, or maybe just talk to their children on how to be safe? So what, I guess, how would you handle either of those situations?
I'd say, Scott, for survivors listening, as we talked about, tell, no matter how much you've been threatened, like I was, it's important because it's your story. And when you're ready to tell your story, it's okay. You're not alone. It's not your fault. That's one of the biggest things people will say. Well, it was my fault. It's not, but you're not alone. You can always reach out to me, even if you just need that 1 minute, that push. My door is open. As we know, I've spoken to numerous nurses, colleges, police academy. I've reached out to numerous people. Love to get into the schools, to tell these kids that, the message, it's not their fault, and to tell. But to the parents and the adults that want to make these kids safe, let them know that people may say it's a secret, don't tell. Let them know that they can always come to you when they're ready. And if something feels funny, if they don't want somebody to touch them, they can say the word no. Because a lot of people will teach their kids, good manners, do what the adult is saying. Well, sometimes what the adult is telling them to do is not okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say no and walk away. Yell, run, and tell is what I tell them.
And you think about, even as adults, it's difficult, right? Because women who get sexually assaulted or men who get sexually assaulted, something, especially in the workplace, a lot of times it's like, okay, well, these stories don't get out until, years later, and then people are like, oh, well, why didn't somebody say? But like, it takes a lot of courage to then be able to share that information, even as an adult. So why would we think it's even easier? Why would we, think that it would be easy for children, right? Like,
Exactly.
it's 10 times tougher for a child to say something when sometimes it takes adults, years to say something. So again, it is, it's just something that continues need to, to be
I
talked about.
think if people knew what the outcome was, they would tell, but people are scared. They don't know what's going to happen. Just like going through a trial, you don't know what's going to happen. I was petrified.
Of
What am
course.
I going to do? But it took me a year to get prepared for this. And, I'm just glad that I won my trial. And would I do it again? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so, before we wrap up, you've done so much for, the people in your community as an advocate and as somebody that, is sharing a voice for those that haven't found theirs yet. And so thank you for all of that. Um, you've written a book, you have changed laws, you are writing a screenplay. I love it, Kathy. What else is on the line of things that you want to continue to do, or just continue to share as much as you can and help as many people as you can?
Well, and don't forget the kids book. I'm
Oh
so
yeah, it's the
excited.
kids book. I
I'm
forgot that.
so I'm so excited about that. I actually
Yeah.
have two dogs, and my little schnauzer Abby is in the book.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, it looks just like her.
Yeah.
But I think, Scott, I just want anybody and everybody that if I can be of help with my voice, with the information, the resources that I have, please reach out to me. If you've read the book, I feel like I have to beg people, but do a review for me, even if you wrote good resource. It's
Oh
so
yeah.
important, and it helps me in ways that you'll never even know. So I don't know what's to come. I mean, one thing I don't know if I can share it, but I'm going to share it anyways. And, I reach out to everybody. And the last person, well, not the last person, Sharon Stone, I reached out to. I'm waiting to hear
Hmm.
back from her. But the person before that is I reached out to President Biden,
Mm.
and he did respond back.
Oh, no
And
kidding.
I just want to show, I did get a letter from him,
How
and
cool.
he has a speech problem, and he said, I would like to thank you for sending your book. So to get that letter was huge,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it just goes to show that you don't know. Everybody puts their pants on the same way. Reach out to everybody. A male survivor friend of mine just reached out to Prince William, and he wrote him back too.
Hmm.
So you just don't know.
Yeah, you really, I think that's a great way to, kind of leave this, is that, we all should not be afraid to connect with somebody, right? Like, um, we can all help other individuals. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, if you want to connect with somebody, connect with them regardless of what it takes.
Yeah.
Because yeah, no, that's great.
You don't know who you're helping. And just by you doing this and sharing people's stories, Scott, you are helping people that you may not even know.
Mm, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thank you too.
Oh, well, thank you. I enjoy it. I love talking to people and connecting with people. So this is a great way for me to do that. And because otherwise, I wouldn't have known you, and I think that you knew my mom.
Yeah.
And so, the world becomes a very small place, where I just happened to reach out to you one day, and I
Yep.
saw some of your information, and then it's like, okay, well, some of this connects, and it becomes pretty it's wild, but excellent. Well,
Yep.
Kathy, thank you so much for, again, coming on, spending some time with me, and sharing to my audience, but also just being the advocate that you are, for those that really, really need the help. And again, our kids, because they have enough to deal with, and this shouldn't be one of them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you.
Excellent.